Good afternoon, everyone. This is Mike O'Malley here with the Hurricane Outlook and discussion for August 19th, 2021, around 2:30 p.m. Eastern Time. We have a lot to discuss today, including the potential for a hurricane to be impacting Mexico and a look at Tropical Storm Henri, which could be impacting the United States East Coast within the next several days. So let's go and jump straight into everything. Taking a wide look across the tropical Atlantic this afternoon, we are down to two systems to watch at the moment, the remnants of Fred. Right now, moving through the northeast United States, bringing with it some heavy rainfall and threat for some isolated tornadoes along with it. It is quickly moving on out and should not be a problem tomorrow. And we are down to now two tropical systems to watch in the Atlantic Basin with Tropical Storm Grace, recently downgraded, and Tropical Storm Henri. And both of these pose significant land concerns over the next several days. So starting here from west to east with Grace, again, we're watching this storm very carefully. It did become a hurricane yesterday and made landfall here somewhere in the Yucatan Peninsula. And again, pressures estimated by Josh Morganman, a very well-renowned storm chaser, found to be about 978 millibars. So this likely dropped about 8 millibars right before landfall. We did not have recon in there late last night, right before landfall. So this was likely a little bit stronger. And for that reason, again, it is possible that this would be maybe a little bit stronger on approach into Mexico. But again, this is expected to reemerge over the coastline sometime this afternoon or evening, and then eventually find itself re-strengthening out here in the Bay of Campeche. Now, it's only expected to stay around for about a day. Again, this won't really have a tremendous amount of time over water, which means significant intensification is not really expected. But we could see this become in the upper echelons of a strong category 1, maybe perhaps even a category 2 hurricane as this approaches Mexico here. Now, we can take a look here at the visible satellite imagery. Again, the storm today, it's just about to exit the coastline. There does seem to be maybe some decoupling here from the mid and low level circulations at this point. There's no shear here, but as the storm moves inland, again, the low and mid level circulations always tend to decouple. And again, we could be seeing where the low level circulation is here and the mid level circulation is somewhere down in this vicinity. Either way, there is still some very vigorous spin that is associated with this. Now, there's probably not a well-established inner core at the moment because of the fact that this has been traversing land for the past couple of hours. This part of the Yucatan Peninsula is relatively flat, similar to Florida, so the disruption to the inner core is not as significant. But you can definitely see there is some dry air working in here, and that's been one of the reasons why we have not really seen substantial deep convection. Either way, heavy rainfall continues, especially for the Yucatan Peninsula, and of course some heavy winds with this as the inner core moves off towards the west-northwest here. Now, real quickly here, we can take a look at the HWAR forecast. This is the 200 millibar wind in the upper part of the atmosphere. Again, main steering flow, we got this ridge right now that's going to be weakening. This is also steering Henri at the moment. This ridge is weakening. We had a strengthening ridge up here to the north, basically forcing the storm towards the west or even southwest at that particular time. Very healthy upper level pattern. Again, this should develop into a healthy upper level anticyclone pattern. And the HWARF here on the 12Z run, again, deepens this down into the 950s range right before landfall. So this could be a pretty strong hurricane. Again, currently National Hurricane Center forecasting about 85 to 90 miles per hour. The upper echelon, probably somewhere between 100 and 110 would be my estimate for the upper echelon. Again, upper air environment is pretty favorable. There might be some mid-level dry air that is associated with the trough that is over the Bay of Campeche right now. We can kind of zoom out and look at that on the water vapor imagery. We can see, again, there's this trough that's been interacting with it over the last several days. And this upper level trough is still here and imparting a little bit of dry air into the circulation along with the dry air from continental Mexico. So this is kind of obviously one of the main problems here that's going to be impacting our storm over the next several days. But as this moves westward, again, it's going to have a chance to move over water tonight and in today, tomorrow. So obviously for folks there, much of the forecasting here in terms of the track is done. Again, there's not really a large north-south spread today, and the forecast within 36 hours is fairly confident. Still a little bit hard to determine the exact landfall point, but somewhere within this vicinity should see the landfall point. There's tropical storm warnings all the way up to Tampico, Mexico, and hurricane warnings further south of that. So again, Stay tuned to your local weather service office and government officials for the most up-to-date information regarding that. Now, moving out in time here, we are also watching Tropical Storm Henri. Sustained winds are near about 70 miles per hour, 65 to 70 miles per hour. We have a recon plane that's been in there today, which is good, and we'll talk about that here in a moment. This is expected to strengthen into a hurricane during the next 36 hours or so as this traverses off towards the northeast here. And again, this will be coming increasingly close here to continental United States and obviously here at the Canadian Maritimes. Now, the track forecast is very uncertain with this, and one of the reasons for that is because what happens here within the next 12 to 24 hours. Right now, if we take a look at visible satellite imagery, we notice that the storm is relatively disorganized compared to yesterday. It's not very well organized. We can notice that there is some outflow here on the northern end of that, but you notice how it's not radially expanding outwards like that. There's a pretty sharp gradient here between the outflow and this northerly shear that's been impacting the storm since last night. Now we can see that on first glance, the low-level circulation would seem to be on the edge of this convection here and what might be a mid-level circulation here. The recon plane that was just in there found something of note, that the circulation is actually more in this deep convection than what we thought. Again, the low-level circulation inferred by satellite would be somewhere in here on the far northern end of this convective cloud mass, but in fact, it is tucked away inside that circulation, and the pressure based on a dropson was supported at about 999 millibars. So this is a little bit weaker than the Hurricane Center initialized it as of the 11 o'clock advisory. But we also noticed that there's some pretty strong winds over here that are roughly at about 60 knots. So this translates to about 70 miles per hour, which would fit the 70 mile per hour the Hurricane Center advisory package. Again, these are flight level winds. Surface winds right now, the surface winds right now are only topping out closely to about maybe 50 knots or so. So this is a little bit weaker, but again, the SFMRs are obviously highly dependent on the wave rate, the wave heights there based on the white caps. Now, what we can also tell is there is a little bit of a temperature dew point spike. Again, you can kind of see where the center is here, and we notice that, again, the sea level pressure was about 1,000 millibars. Dropson supports 999. There is a little bit of a temperature dew point spike, nothing crazy, but there is a temperature dew point spike of about 5 degrees Celsius, which means that this is, again, likely something that there is still resemblance of an inner core structure. And again, if we kind of look here at the dropson, again, it was 1,000 millibar surface with about a north wind out of 8 knots. And this suggests that, again, 999 accounting for the 8 knot reduction here. So it's about 999 millibars. And we notice there is some dry air, some subsidence aloft here at about 950 millibars or so. So this is, again, the surface here. And again, this is just about 950 millibars. So there is some subsidence up here at the top of this eye structure, which definitely supports the fact that this is still a rather robust circulation, and it is certainly a stronger storm than what we might have thought based on the satellite images. So looking here at the H4 forecast, again, this is the 500 millibar steering flow in the middle part of the atmosphere. And again, we still don't really know yet what's going to happen in terms of the track forecast, and there's several complexities for that. Right now, again, we have this ridge that's been over Henri over the last several days. Kind of the mid-level flow is still generally out of the west-southwest at this time, and that's because this ridge right here is still controlling the flow out of the west-southwest. This ridge, though, is dying in advance of this upper-level shortwave trough that's going to be moving over the northeastern United States during the next several days or so. Now, this shortwave energy eventually is going to cut off here, and during this time, the ridge begins to weaken over Henri, so that Henri begins to make its turn more towards the northwest and eventually up towards the north here. Now, the curvature of this turn here is going to matter a lot, because if it is a little bit of a sharper turn, Henri, instead of coming up something like that, Henri might be able to steer much like this. Now, we also notice that here's this cutoff low that's trying to develop and dig towards the southeast here, we will also have an expanding ridge to the north that's also moving east. So again, you can quickly see how the complex interactions, it's a very complicated forecast, and that's why we're not sure. So again, what ends up happening is this upper level energy is going to try to steer the storm more northerly. Again, the direction now becomes more out of the north, and we get a storm that's trying to get pulled more towards the north. But we also have this ridge of high pressure moving eastward. Now, again, the timing of this ridge moving eastward is going to matter a lot, because if this ridge is a little bit further out like this, it might turn a storm like that. And if it's more like this, it might turn a storm more like that. So there's quickly a lot of complexities here. Now, if the ridge and this upper level trough here, this upper level energy works in tandem at the same time, you can get a storm that actually tries to swing in here towards the coast. And that's what ends up happening. Again, this upper level low is pivoting southeast, and it's also forcing a little bit of flow around like that, around with this expanding ridge of high pressure here. And this basically forces a storm to take a turn in towards land instead of turning it on out comfortably to sea. And this is one of the things that we've talked about, where this could be a very real possibility. And on the HWAR forecast, this has it almost making landfall here near Cape Cod by early Sunday morning. So at the very least, again, it'd be expecting that we could see some impacts deteriorating really beginning on Saturday and then continuing into Sunday and lasting a while. Now, some of the recent runs here of the GFS and HWRF have been having this basically stall out over this area as the steering flow becomes relatively weak. Now, the one good thing is if this does stall offshore, the water temperatures here in this part of the world are not very high, roughly at about 21 to 22 Celsius. And with a strong hurricane coming in, if this were to be a strong hurricane, it'd quickly cause a lot of significant upwelling and choke off a lot of convection near the inner core. There is also the possibility that this might be coming in too fast, and if it is coming in a little bit faster, you could be looking at a bona fide hurricane making landfall here somewhere across Long Island or the Cape here. And that's going to be one of the main keys, is the exact turning in the exact forward speed of Henri as it approaches the coast here. Now, either way here, again, we can kind of look at the relative humidity. There will be a lot of rain on the west side. Again, the shortwave trough will be inducing some dry air on the eastern side. But again, it's mainly going to be this western side that will have a lot of heavy rainfall. So either way, there could be some impacts in terms of gusty winds, heavy rainfall, the potential for storm surge, especially if this is a bona fide hurricane on approach to the northeast United States. Again, it's not necessarily a guarantee that this is going to make landfall, and it's not necessarily a guarantee that this will stay out to sea. So there is a wide range of possible solutions, from a storm that turns inland over the northeast United States and rapidly weakening, to a storm that stays just offshore and impacts the Canadian Maritimes, or a storm that turns well off to sea and doesn't really impact anyone except for generating some swells that will radiate outwards as the storm passes by. So there's still a wide range of possibilities. Now, we do have an upper-level aircraft reconnaissance mission that has just left Florida, and will be sampling the near storm and kind of far away storm environments to determine the steering flow and what we could be looking at. And that model data will be assimilated into the 0Z runs tonight. So we should be looking at a much better and more confident solution, hopefully later this evening. So there's still some wide range of possibilities here. Again, the best advice right now, if you live up here in the northeast United States, really anywhere from the Delmarv, even though you're not in the cone, anywhere from the Delmarv through New Jersey and all the way up here to Maine, should be continuing to monitor the progress of this system. And again, have your hurricane preparedness plans ready in case if you were to get a storm to head your way. All right, that's going to be it for today. Hope you all have a great rest of your afternoon and evening. Of course, I am Michael O'Malley. I'll talk to you guys again some more tomorrow.